Welcome into Overdrive on this Thursday afternoon. I'm Aaron Korolnek in for Brian Hayes today. That's Dave Feschuk from the Toronto Star. The O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill to my left. Game 82. The end of the regular season in the National Hockey League for the Toronto Maple Leafs. The playoffs on the horizon. Fellas, the best time of year is here.
They should just have a rule in the league where Toronto can call Detroit or the other way around and say, do you really want to play this game? Like, you can have the two or we can have the two. Give fans some kind of jersey and say it's not happening tonight. Because who the hell wants to watch it? Or, I mean, at least let a team sit out players. I know there's cap restrictions where you can't sit guys because you have to do this or that, but to play this game, and I'm on the broadcast.
I want to watch it. TSN 4. I can't wait.
I don't even think anything about the actual game will be discussed in between periods.
No.
It's going to be the playoff matchups, what's going on. Are you like most people around here, by the way, youngsters?
Youngsters? I'm not a youngster now? Come on.
That, like, what are you, like, Doogie, our producer,
he's a youngster.
He had to go on YouTube to watch clips.
Dude, I'm 36 years old.
Oh, okay.
I remember. How old? We've been working together for 14 years.
I didn't know. So you're well aware of what was going down.
Dude, when Joe Nieuwendyk sniped, I'll call it a snipe on Patrick Lalime, one of the defining moments of my childhood.
Not for Lalime. Dave, what are your memories of the old Battle of Ontario?
Well, I mean, I think I covered a lot of it. That's how old I am. I mean, the thing that sticks out to me, as he
Patty
shoots
Lalime.
that shot at O-Dog,
That's a terrible goal, man. Like, why are you reaching over there with your glove?
That seemed like a blocker save that he tried to save with his glove. But as he shoots that shot, O-Dog, the thing that kills me about how long ago that was, first of all, it's in standard definition.
That he's standing up?
The goaltender's standing up, and Joe Nieuwendyk in that clip is using a wooden stick. A stick made of wood. Yeah. They haven't used those in quite some time.
I think he used that for his whole career. I don't think he ever made the shift to like any type of aluminum, but I don't know. I'm looking forward to it, man. They got to get through this game. And I would assume tonight, like, fourth liners always want more ice time. Third liners want more ice. Like, Austin Matthews is on the fourth line tonight.
Oh, for sure.
I might give you a sniff on the power play. You might get some. I don't know what I'm going to do with you, but you're not going to play a whole lot.
Lineup's the same as Tuesday night against Buffalo.
Dude, I get it. But as far as deploying the guys,
for sure.
The top line, you're now our fourth line tonight. You're hardly going out there. I don't know when I'm going to put you out there, but they might set a record in their careers for minutes played in a game because it wouldn't be that much.
Well, we saw a prime example of what tonight could hold for the Leafs, and you hope that's not the case last night with Dallas, right? Jason Robertson gets hurt, and that's got to be the worst nightmare for everybody involved. If you're playing a game tonight, doesn't matter if you're playing with Toronto or Ottawa or Carolina, a bunch of teams play tonight who have playoff aspirations, deep playoff aspirations, and you got to be very careful.
That's the
and
thing.
It's
like,
a no-hitter, man. Don't even think
no-hitter,
about
but
going in and
sometimes
blocking a shot, no thanks.
I never liked the mentality of going out there saying, I got to mail this one in because I don't want to get hurt, because sometimes karma gets you, or it just, you put yourself in a stupid position, and you ultimately do end up getting hurt. Well, so I guess if you're going to put your jersey on and do it the right way, you might as well go out and play the game the way it's supposed to be played.
Well, that's the thing. Like, you got to go full speed, because if you start going three-quarter speed, guess what? There's guys in the other team that don't care, and they'll be happy to drill you. And I'm with you. Like, if you're Craig Berube, it's like short shifts, limit your time out there. But I think you want the guys just sort of getting the legs going, just keeping their timing. It's really just a prep game in a lot of ways.
And I'm sure Detroit's on board as well. They just want to get out of Dodge and get the hell out of here.
Preseason game. That's what it has to be. It has to be a preseason game. And you mentioned the lineup being the same, or I mentioned the lineup being the same. Joe Woll will start. And I think perhaps the most important thing coming from practice today is what Craig Berube had to say about Oliver Ekman-Larsson, Jake McCabe, and David Kampf, saying he's fairly confident that all three will be ready for game one. Now, we have been led astray by Craig Berube and the Toronto Maple Leafs with regards to injuries in the past. But I will take Berube at his word there. And if all three guys are in the lineup for game one, that's obviously huge for Toronto. McCabe and Tanev as your shutdown pair against likely Brady Tkachuk and Tim Stützle, that top line. And you'll have Oliver Ekman-Larsson slotted properly playing the third pair. The Leafs are going into the postseason as healthy as they've been all year.
You just mentioned Brady Tkachuk. It's going to be fascinating how that plays out, because I don't think it's going to be a Four Nations type scenario where he's going to want to kill somebody in a fight off the first face-off. I mean, I'm not going to put it past. I'm not going to put it past him. But who's going to be the taker on the other side? Is it Brandon Carlo? Is it Max? I don't know. I just don't know if there's a taker. And I mean, we were talking yesterday with Ray Ferraro where it's like you almost like just let him go crazy out there and see if he takes a penalty because he has to focus on kind of meaningful physicality, purposeful stuff where he just gets in on a forecheck and he's a bear that way. In the playoffs, there's no sense. I mean, scrums are going to happen, but if you think you're going to bully somebody with scrums and punches, I just don't know if that can happen.
Well, I mean, Brad Marchand made a career out of it. I mean, he has made a career out of it. I think you can do it if you know who you're doing it to.
Yeah, but I would rather see him run guys over in the corner, get the puck, and make plays off of that, as opposed to the stupid stuff. Because it'll get to a point where it's so distracting for his own game. There's only so much you can do in 60 minutes of hockey.
Yeah. I mean, look, it kind of reminds you of like the Nazem Kadri conundrum in Toronto, right? Like you loved everything about that guy when you were a Leaf fan. You also hated a lot of things about him because the line between being an unpredictable menace out there, which he could be at his best,
well, what you hated,
and
Dave,
being a liability.
What you hated is he wasn't on the ice. He took himself out of series.
So that's the thing. You want a Brady Tkachuk on your team, but you don't want the negativity that a guy like that can bring, a Kadri-esque scenario. So I'm with you, Doug. Like, you know, if you're the Senators in some ways, it's a massive opportunity here because like there's zero pressure on your team. You know, we're listing off all the guys who've never played in the playoffs that are on that roster that are prominent guys from Tkachuk to Stützle to Shabbat to Sanderson to Greg to Pinto. They've got some guys with experience, but the idea that they have zero experience, the Leafs have all this baggage. If you're the Senators, like this is like the easiest setup going in terms of having no pressure and no expectation.
Well, and would you rather have the experience of getting blasted in the first round almost every single year, and especially recently when you're a favorite in most series like the Toronto Maple Leafs have been, or no experience at all? Would you rather this baggage, as you call it, or the demons that Paul McLean, who's going to join us at 5:30, said the Leafs have in the Stanley Cup playoffs? It's a fair question. Yes, the Leafs have been in the playoffs for 9 straight years, depending on how you view the play-in against Columbus, while the Ottawa Senators, most of their core pieces, save a couple of guys, haven't been there at all. And I don't know if that's an advantage or a disadvantage, but we'll find out Sunday at 7 o'clock.
I think it would be the wrong way to look at it if you're the Ottawa Senators to say there's just no pressure on us. Whatever happens, happens. I think you can talk yourself into a losing mentality. I think they should be excited.
Oh, yeah.
Because of one thing, they've got a goaltender. And if you talk to anybody around that team this year, when that guy's dialed in and he plays good, they've all said the same thing. People in the media, you talk to anybody in Ottawa, it's like when that guy's dialed in and he's real good and on his game, it's almost like they feel like they can't lose. That's how good he can be. And if he gets anywhere close to that, they could put it together and cause some harm to teams, man. I just think looking at it as, there's no pressure here. I think that's stupid. It's a stupid mentality.
Really? Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you what, O-Dog, you cannot tell me that the pressure has not affected the Leafs. I mean, the idea that they've beaten themselves more than they've been beaten in this run of 1-for-9 playoff series in the Shanaplan era. They shouldn't have lost to Columbus. Just when you thought they were going to snap out of it and they win the Game 4 in heroic fashion, they don't show up to Game 5. They shouldn't, we can go down the list of games where they showed the weight of expectation and the weight of the moment was too much for them. So you can say that no pressure is no big deal, but my experience watching athletes is it can be a big deal and it becomes overwhelming at times.
Well, it's going to be fascinating because we break down the Toronto Maple Leafs on the daily, and it's the micro. It's Craig Berube's a new coach, and it was needed, and there's a different voice, there's a different approach, there's a different forecheck, there's better play when games are tight. They've displayed that the last month. Back-to-back situations, the way they play, they give themselves a chance to win. Some key games, like going into Carolina, they always seem to find a way to lose that game. Back-to-back, go to Carolina, good team, they'd lose the game. But now it's kind of big picture what's the new approach, because in years past, we really didn't know what they thought of the playoffs because they never really talked about it. Like, nobody really came out and said, man, this is like, we've had some disappointments and we're really going to try to make it count this year, like we're cup or bust. It's just, Hayes has mentioned it a bunch of times. The idea of the Stanley Cup playoffs, they never talk about it. Mm-hmm. So we don't really know where their headspaces are at, although they probably wouldn't tell us. But can they change that approach? Because it seems like in years past, and it's been a bunch of years now, their approach when the playoffs start is, well, this is here again. I hope nothing crappy happens or nothing goofy.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a crazy approach when you got a quality team and a chance to win all the time. It's never like, let's lay it on the line and make our own breaks, and we're going to come out of the gates and we're going to be flying. It's, oh, the playoffs are here. Like, I hope nothing crappy happens. That seems to have been their kind of approach to it.
You guys know exactly what I'm talking about when I bring up this reference. And there are times you're in a golf match with someone who you play with a lot, and they have a tendency to melt down when the pressure ramps up. If
You're
I'm
talking
Ottawa,
about Carlo.
well, I am talking about Carlo. Although he does come up clutch in Sleep Flight Club championships, everybody knows that, and the National as well. But there are guys you look at, you're like, I know this guy is going to choke it away like a dog down the stretch. And if
Or have a play on the negative end when it's critical.
Sure. And if I'm Ottawa, and maybe this is the wrong outlook for them, the number one reason why I believe, whether it's right or wrong, is because they've seen it. They've been sitting on the sidelines for the entire time. A lot of these guys watching the Leafs blow big leads in playoff series, not being able to score, losing game sevens. I'm hyping myself up and like, sure, the Leafs won the Atlantic Division, and sure, they're probably the better team on paper, but these guys have choked it away, and they're going to choke it away again, and we're going to be the ones on the other side winning the round and moving on to round two. Whether or not it happens, we're going to have to wait until Sunday night to find out. But as far as the reasons, if I'm Ottawa, to believe in my chances, I mean, you say what you will about Allmark. I think they've got quality depth up front. Jake Sanderson's a stud on the back end. But I think you have to look on the other side of the ice as to why you should be more optimistic than anything.
Well, the one thing for the Ottawa Senators, and it's got to be their main focus, is, and it's been true with all the series that we watched, that the Toronto Maple Leafs have been on the losing end. The Ottawa Senators have to go into this series, and it's going to be the most critical thing that other teams have accomplished is, if you give the star players from the Toronto Maple Leafs time and space, they will kill you.
Oh, yeah.
If you turn pucks over and let them go the other way, Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews, the last 3 or 4 games, have been torching the opposition on turnovers. Tampa, there was 2, in Carolina and in Buffalo. So if you want to do that, they might crush you. But the big thing is, everyone says after the series, where were those guys? When the time and space is taken away from them, they have not had success come playoff time at making plays. So that's got to be Ottawa's number one goal. Take away their time and space, make their life miserable, and let's see if this series they want to battle through it or can battle through it or find a different way to create offense, because in the past they haven't done that.
Let me ask you this. The Sens beat the Leafs 3-0 in this season series. Toronto scored 3 goals in those 3 games. How much meaning, if any, do you put in those results?
Well, if anything, all that is just some video for Travis Green to show their team, this is how you guys were successful when this happened, when that happened. But I don't buy any regular season matchup. It's a different animal when the puck drops, and I don't think you can say there's going to be definitely things to draw on.
Yeah.
And for Toronto too. Ottawa came into Toronto. I don't know which game it was. It might have been in November. It might have been in January. But I think they won 3-0, and they were dialed in. Like, it was a playoff type game where they took away time and space. They were physical. They were structured, and they played well, and they got the job done.
Look, you're right. It's hard to say what it's going to be like because we just haven't seen Ottawa in this, and we have seen the Leafs. But I'll say, like, when you think about the way the Leafs have played down the stretch here, you know, Stolarz has been central to it, right? And the only thing that I am a little bit concerned about if I'm Craig Berube is, you know, Stolarz's next start in the playoffs will be his first start in the playoffs. And you just never know. Like, it shouldn't make a difference. It's the same game. It's the same players, same equipment, same ice, same net. But we've seen plenty of Vezina caliber guys look like, you know, complete duds when it matters in the playoffs. I'm thinking about Leafs East in Winnipeg, Mr. Connor Hellebuck,
Sure.
who the last couple of years has gone from Vezina to absolute liability in the playoffs. So you just never know how the moment is going to affect guys. Now, my read of Anthony Stolarz, and I don't know about you guys, is I'm not particularly concerned if I'm Craig Berube, but the fact that he has no history, he has 0 resume in the playoffs outside of mop-up duty last year for 1 game in the final. That is a nice, interesting kind of, you know, like an unknown that you're really just going to have to keep an eye on.
What I find really interesting about how a lot of people are looking at this series, they're pointing to Anthony Stolarz in goal, which is clearly a huge upgrade over what the Leafs had last year. But
still it's going to be a major talking point,
for
win
sure.
or lose.
Yes, the new defenseman on the team, Ekman Larsson, Jake McCabe, and Brandon Carlo coming over from Boston at the deadline. Very important. But the point remains that the reason the Leafs continually lose in the postseason, especially in Game 7s, especially over the last couple of years, is they don't score. So if Matthews and Marner and Tavares and Nylander and Matthew Nyes and Morgan Riley and the guys who are expected to contribute offense aren't able to score more than 2 goals, I don't care how good Stolarz is, I don't care how good the newly revamped defense is, they could still very well lose to the Ottawa Senators.
I get it. They don't
need
score
to produce offense.
I get it. They don't score. But that Game 7 in Boston last year where Samsonov was put in the net, and I understand that was kind of an awkward situation where Joseph Woll at the last minute couldn't go. But that Lindholm goal, terrible.
That was a Lalime goal, is what that Lindholm
That's
goal
exactly.
was.
It was terrible.
Yeah,
and
awful.
even the overtime winner, Pasternak, was terrible. It was like,
well, that was defensively terrible.
It was all terrible. So you can say, they got to score the goal, but if your goaltender doesn't give you a chance to score the goal, it all goes hand in hand. I think it's just guys stepping up, goaltenders, best players, depth guys, like just guys stepping up to make positive impacts in games as opposed to being the guy that cost you the hockey game.
Let me ask you this, though. With regards to Canadian teams, Montreal, they win last night. They clinched a spot in the playoffs. They'll play Washington. Ottawa taking on Toronto. Between Ottawa and Montreal, who's the more live dog to emerge victorious in this series for you?
So basically, you're asking me who's got a better chance.
Who would you pick to win? Who's more likely to win the series? Again, Washington has not been good down the stretch. They don't have Logan Thompson, we don't believe, for at least the first game. And Montreal's been pretty hot since the Four Nations anyways. They get in. And Ottawa...
I would have to say, looking at it, maybe Montreal, like them riding the momentum and the way that Washington has played, I'm sure their coach is hoping that they can flip the switch. But if they don't get saves, because they've been giving up a lot lately. For a month.
3 or more goals in 11 of the last 12 games for Washington.
So that's got to stop.
Ominous.
But yeah, I'll say Montreal has a better chance.
Yeah, I would go with that too. I think Washington's vulnerable because this season kind of came out of the blue. Like nobody saw this team challenging for the President's Trophy. Every expert I have encountered and read back and kind of looked at predictions, I didn't see anybody predict the Washington Capitals to have the year they've had. And a lot of it was fueled by the emotion of the OV chase. And now that that's over, you've seen a real deflation of that team. But I think it ultimately is what you said, AK. Like if Logan Thompson gets back and he's going to be okay. Now we don't know. Doesn't look particularly good that he's not going to dress for Game 1 in all likelihood. Then it does kind of alleviate the concern there. But it's a completely unproven team. I mean, as is Montreal. So that's a dice roll series.
What is really interesting is that there's a bunch of dudes who are returning from long absences. Tyler Seguin returns last night for Dallas. Dougie Hamilton, top 50 Dougie. He's back for New Jersey. Man, do they ever need him because they are just getting killed by injuries. We expect Brady Tkachuk to play tonight. Matthew Tkachuk in Game 1. Landeskog with Colorado. I mean, it sounds like he might actually play. Again, the last time we saw Gabriel Landeskog in an NHL game was in the Cup final years ago. And it seems like he'll be ready to rock. That'll be quite the experience to see him. But you
knew all the guys that are out long term, like the Matthew Tkachuks.
LTIR situation. Evander Kane, another one.
As soon as tomorrow happens, it's like, yeah, these guys are good to go for Game 1. It's like, wow, it's shocking that everybody's ready to go.
But I think Landeskog's in a different category, right? Like I would be, like, I don't know how you see it, Doug. For this guy to be off as long as he's been off, to have these, devastating, career-threatening knee injuries to the point where a lot of people assumed he would never play again.
Bess, I give him credit for even attempting it because it would have been so easy for him to say, not check, please, but I'm going back to Sweden or wherever he lives, and I'm just not doing this anymore. Doctors have told me the percentages of me actually playing a game after this surgery because I think the odds of him playing were very minimal.
Yeah.
So for him to even put 2 years into it, it's crazy stuff. He could have easily said, that's it for me. Thank you.
Oh, I agree with you. I admire the persistence, but I just have a hard time imagining how he is going to hit the ground running in a playoff series, having not played in a preseason game, a regular season game.
Played 2 games in the AHL.
He did score.
No, that's
it's going to be a nervous watch watching him. I will say that.
I mean,
where it's like, when guys come back from a catastrophic injury and you're just every time they hit somebody or bump into somebody, you're like, what's that going to mean for that guy?
Yeah.
Is he going to go down? And if he goes down, he's never playing again. It's a nervous watch.
It is.
Yeah, and I mean, thinking about last night where Dallas, who have now lost 7 games in a row heading into the Stanley Cup playoffs.
That sucks too.
It does suck. And Jason Robertson leaving with a brace on his knee, and you would expect him to be missing some time to start the Stanley Cup playoffs, which is a massive loss and which really underscores the importance of tonight for everybody around the NHL. Be careful out there. Don't get hurt because the playoffs are here, and there is not a single game tonight that means anything as far as standings go. Again,
everything's
Montreal
locked
wins.
in.
Everything's locked in. And I'm sure there's guys chasing milestones. John Tavares has 38 goals. Would he like to score twice tonight? Sure. Would Matthew Knies like to score his 30th goal this season? Sure. But who cares? It's all irrelevant. The only number that should matter is 16. It's the number of wins that requires Stanley Cup.
That's, as I mentioned, I heard Neil Pionk, he was interviewed today, and he was like, we just want to win a Stanley Cup. That's all.
Yeah.
So,
Doug, you haven't getting you didn't order your Maple Leafs Atlantic Division Champions t-shirt?
I have not.
Are those available for sale?
Oh yeah,
really?
Hot seller.
I don't think so.
And I thought I'm not saying you shouldn't sell.
There's not an Atlantic Division.
There is on their team store.
Oof.
And I thought that was okay. The Raptors put up a Atlantic Division champion banners in the Colangelo era because they hadn't won it before, and it was like a milestone for the franchise. And I guess you could make the case the Leafs haven't won the division. Well, you guys have gone through those numbers.
Was it 99, 2000?
Yeah.
I hope there's not some kind of banner that goes up tonight because they'll get so
please,
hard.
no. They can't do it. Save it for
they
next
have to
year.
acknowledge it
Save
somewhere
it for next
in the
year.
arena. They're like every team has this division championship.
No, you're right.
You just slide that.
Oh, there's the shirt up on TSN.
My thing with this shirt was I looked at it. I got an email.
I like it. I like the shirt.
Yeah, it's
I got
nice.
an email alerting me to the presence of this shirt. And the thing that just struck me was my eyes were adjusting to the light on my laptop, and I was like, champions. Look at how big champions. Atlantic Division's in small print, and it's Maple Leafs champions.
Small victories, Dave, when it's been as long as it has been for the Toronto Maple Leafs and any substantive success. I guess they got the playoff round a couple of years ago. You may as well embrace it. I don't know how many of those they're selling. Text us 105050 or tweet us at OverDrive 1050 if you bought the shirt and why you did, but I respect it nonetheless.
If it was English soccer, they'd be giving them a trophy or some
sure.
sort of silverware for winning the division, and people would be celebrating in the streets. I don't know what we've done in North American sports where we're the regular season, we play 6 months, it doesn't matter. I mean, it should matter more probably, but we just don't
slide that banner up in the summer.
Yes,
Atlantic Division champions right next to the Bon Jovi banner.
Yes, that would be a very wise choice. So we've got a great show lined up for you today. The debut of AK's List. AK's List on the other side. I hope this isn't a situation where Brian Hayes comes at me with a lawsuit like Taddy would for some kind of yes guy, no guy situation.
Don't even say the words.
I'm sorry, you're right. There could be some
lawsuits coming.
Some litigious manners coming my way, courtesy of Mr. Taddy. Hopefully not. AK's List will feature the players on Canadian teams with the most to gain heading into the Stanley Cup playoffs. That is an intriguing list.
It is.
It's coming your way on the other side here on OverDrive. You're watching on TSN 1050 or listening on TSN 1050, watching on TSN 4. Hour 1 continues. Mail It In Thursday is brought to you by Boston Pizza, Canada's favorite sports bar. This playoff season, Boston Pizza is planning the parade and has a new all-star playoffs menu for you to enjoy for pizza, pints, and puck drops. Visit your local Boston Pizza today. We should wish our friend Doogie, the producer of this fine radio program, a very happy birthday. He is probably crushing pints at a Boston Pizza right now, which I respect immensely.
Such a 23-year-old thing to do, to take the day off on your birthday. I've never actually heard of that.
Shame.
I wouldn't even think about it, but Doogie, you deserve it, pal.
He does. And you're not mailing it in. I mean, look, you're here. As far as the regulars of OverDrive, I think you're the only mainstay. You deserve to be commended.
Exactly.
Perhaps a personal day later in the summer.
By the way, Boston Pizza, that's a ballsy promo. Planning the parade.
It is aggressive.
Wow.
Yeah.
Maybe they're on to
And
something.
that's
Maybe they're on to
that's a
something.
bit close
I hope they're
to,
doing that
right?
in every major Canadian city that qualified for the Stanley Cup playoffs. Not
You think the reads are being done in Ottawa?
Dude.
Like AJ Jakubik's like, all right, at Boston Pizza, you're in Ottawa.
They
Plan
better
the
be.
parade.
They better be doing it in Winnipeg and Montreal, Ottawa.
Is there not a little tree living family connection there too? Like that's a little Leaf-esque. Isn't it? I mean, that's a little close.
I like it.
Bad
Confidence.
omen or good.
Ballsy but confident.
I like it. I hope Ballsy but confident will also describe AK's List, the debut of AK's List. And I have compiled a list of the 5 players with the most to gain coming up in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Does that is most to gain? Does that basically mean the most pressure?
No. It's a different spin, though, because I've seen people do segments on most pressure. I think that has a negative connotation. This is a positive connotation. These are guys who can overcome the obstacles, step up when their teams need it the most and maybe emerge to a different level than we thought previously. This is a positive spin on the most pressure list.
Okay.
Aaron,
Which
this is so smart.
Oh, wow, there you go.
There you
All right,
go.
look at the drop that we use on First Up. I
I will
appreciate
say,
that.
though, I don't want to be the negative person on this show.
Okay.
When you compile a list of the most to gain, it usually means that they're just going to get torched because they crap the bed if they don't play well.
That's exactly
so,
it.
which
That's
also
exactly
means
it.
there's some pressure involved there.
There's
So-
definitely they're intertwined to some extent. There's no
Okay.
doubt. Let me start with number 5, player with the most to gain. These are Canadian teams, players on Canadian teams. Brady Tkachuk of the Ottawa Senators coming in at number 5. And think about how long we've been talking about Brady Tkachuk. Oh, when this guy gets into the playoffs, he is going to be an absolute menace. 2017, the last time the Ottawa Senators were in the Stanley Cup playoffs. They are back in the playoffs. He is the captain of that hockey team. And what an incredible opportunity for him. And he's playing tonight. We think he's healthy. We think he'll be raring and ready to go in game 1. To oust the Leafs in the Battle of Ontario. Think about the first foray into the Stanley Cup playoffs, the opportunity that Brady Tkachuk and the Ottawa Senators have as the captain of that hockey club. What if he puts that team on his back and just dominates physically and is an absolute menace in this series? He has an incredible, incredible opportunity in front of him, and that is why he is the 5th on my list of players with the most to gain in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
You think of what goes into playoff hockey and what's required as far as what a player needs to have success. And his own brother has been pumping his tires saying this guy needs to get in the playoffs because he's going to dominate and he was born for this. And we're going to see what kind of leader, because he's the one thing I'll give the guy credit for. And I was actually a little bit critical of it, where it was like the fights every night. But when his teammates in Ottawa decided to mail it in, the games weren't important and they were losing, that guy at least showed up every single night. Showed his teammates, like, no matter what the situation is here, I'm going to fight for you guys, whether it's right or wrong, because I have to show everybody that we're just not going to stop. So he could be massive for Ottawa in the playoffs.
You know, we're making a lot out of the fact these guys haven't been there before. And
I don't put a whole lot into that, man. Like,
well, that's sort of what I'm thinking. Like, this guy's not a rookie. Like, Brady Tkachuk's 25 years old, making his playoff debut. Now, it's a shame that it's taken this long for this franchise to get their acting gear and get into the playoffs and provide their best players with a chance. And, obviously a lot of that's been on their best players for not performing. But I don't know if the lack of experience card is really going to be a storyline that we explore beyond right now. Like, I think game 1 rolls.
That's exactly it.
And he may look pretty damn comfortable in a playoff game.
he sure as all didn't look uncomfortable in the Four Nations.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I completely agree. He looked like he was born for that. And I think that's exactly what we're going to see on Sunday night. And that's going to be a very difficult thing for the Maple Leafs to contend with. Number 4 on my players on Canadian teams with the most to gain ahead of the Stanley Cup playoffs is Mark Scheifele of the Winnipeg Jets. He's the number 1 center, 39 goals, 87 points. The Winnipeg Jets win the President's Trophy. They're the best team they and Washington are the best teams in the NHL all year long. And we can't forget the last 2 playoff runs for Winnipeg where they lost 4-1 in the first round. Once to the Vegas Golden Knights, led by Jack Eichel. Once to the Colorado Avalanche, led by Nathan MacKinnon. It's time for Mark Scheifele to step up, prove he's worthy of Olympic consideration next year, and prove he's a legit number 1 center that can go toe-to-toe with the best in the world. That is a huge opportunity for the stud for the Winnipeg Jets.
Well, him, like the whole team, I don't know how many years. I went through a stretch of years. It's been a long time now. I mean, how long's Mark Scheifele been in the league? Has he been in the league 10 years?
Probably close to that, yeah.
When that team moved to Winnipeg and they got good, I was all in on them for a lot, like through the Bufflin years. And one year they made it to the conference final against Vegas, and Vegas ultimately beat them. But you just wonder, they've kept that window open a long time, man. Like, usually the window, people always talk about, somebody tweets it out as soon as a team gets eliminated. The window is just closed on that team. Even if it's like their second time in the playoffs, they're like, the window is
How
just
many times
closed
has the Leafs window closed?
But the bottom line is, they're not much different from the Toronto Maple Leafs.
I agree.
Where they've had real quality teams and they've dominated the regular season, racked up regular season points individually as a team, and they haven't found a way to get it done. But he's their best player, and he's a big part of the reason they have the record the way they do. And he's got to be great, and their goaltender's got to be great, because I think they won game 1 against Colorado last year. And then after that, it literally came apart at the seams.
4 straight?
Yeah, it was incredible what happened with Georgiev and net too.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like they have a fresh mindset and they have maybe a different belief, but it's probably still in the back of their minds. It's like, man, I hope that doesn't happen again.
The difference with them and the Leafs is that they did have that run to the conference finals, but it was in 2018.
That's right. That's a long time ago.
It was a long time ago, and now they've proven they can do it, but it's been a long time since they've done it. A lot of that has been, Hellebuck not being Hellebuck in the big moments, but it can't just be on the goalie. And I'm 100% with
goalie might factor into this list.
Goalie may factor into this list.
I
don't disagree with that, but I do think that look, it's got to be a team game, and it's got to be. We're going to talk about the Maple Leafs a lot about the best guys becoming the guys they can be in the playoffs, and they haven't done that in the playoffs. I mean, Scheifele fits into that category.
Number 3. Oh, go ahead.
For the Winnipeg Jets, it's not exactly a nice gift to win the President's Trophy and get the St. Louis Blues.
One of the hottest teams in the league.
That's the gift nobody wants.
Have we heard an update on Robert Thomas? I know he left that game a couple nights ago. That would be a huge loss for the
That would
Blues.
be huge.
It's just crazy how down the stretch in games that don't mean anything.
I think he's a leading point getter since the Four Nations.
Yeah.
He's been a beast for St. Louis. Number 3 on my players on Canadian teams with the most to gain, Evan Bouchard of the Edmonton Oilers. Think about the conversations we were having about this cat a year ago. One of the best young defensemen in the NHL, the Boosh Bomb, unstoppable power play quarterback, and was left off Team Canada at the Four Nations. Had a really poor seasons by his standards defensively. And now for Edmonton, Matthias Ekholm, we have no idea if he will return, when he will return. Evan Bouchard is putting a lot on his shoulders. And the contract he could be staring at if he steps up and plays like he did last year for the vast majority of the season. And think about the impact that he could have for the Edmonton Oilers, who desperately need an impact offensive defenseman, especially with Ekholm, who's more of a defensive guy, of course. But clearly, Bouchard's going to have to step up and play a much more prominent role on both sides of that coin. So Evan Bouchard, a lot of pressure on him, but also a lot to gain.
A lot to gain because I think July 1st, somebody's phone could ring and they're going to want to re-up this guy. I think. I don't know what his deal looks like right now.
He's an RFA. He's
going to be an RFA,
Yep.
So they're going to be... He's going to say, if it doesn't start with 9, you better go running because I had him last year as one of the major X factors for the Edmonton Oilers because sometimes he was a little dopey out there and he'd fall asleep in his own zone during the regular season, and that guy flipped the switch come playoff time, and I thought he was incredible. Obviously, he leaned on Ekholm, but his play alone, he was fantastic. He was competitive. He put up points. He had critical points where it was like he was the guy. He was fantastic last year in the playoffs. And if he doubles down on that again, you talk about the most to gain, July 1st is probably when it's going to happen.
Yeah, and I think flip the switch is a great phrase for this team because, the regular season hasn't been what they've wanted it to be for sure. And
I think the Oilers are in tough, man.
Yeah.
And I think you got to give it, not just because of injuries or, worn down or guys coming back. The LA Kings are a hell of a team, and nobody stated that. It's like they've hardly lost at home the whole year.
5 times.
Yeah, and I think for years, the last couple anyway, they're like, we're probably going to get Edmonton. We got to try a way to beat them. They look good, man, and they just might have the squad to do it this year.
That's a well-built LA team for sure. But I do think, I think it was, a lot of guys have always said to me, don't always put too much stock in the recent regular season for a team that's done it before. And this is a team that's, they've been to a cup final, last year. This is a team that, has overcome a lot of stuff in these handful of years that they've been going at it. And, I do think they might have the ability to flip that switch and make us remember who they are after a regular season where, they didn't really look like themselves.
Let's move on to number 2 on my list, AK's list. Players with the most to gain heading into the Stanley Cup playoffs. We talked about the Winnipeg Jets with Mark Scheifele. Number 2 on my list is Connor Hellebuck. If you looked at the list, and Connor Hellebuck's about to win his 3rd Vezina trophy, you're talking about him joining a group of goaltenders like Martin Brodeur and Patrick Waugh and Dominic Hasek and Terry Sawchuk and Ken Dryden, all-time great goaltenders. But the one thing that a lot of those guys have, if not all of them, is playoff success. Meanwhile, Connor Hellebuck is 18-27 with a 2.85 goals against average in his playoff career. He is regarded, and rightfully so, as a completely different player in the regular season versus the postseason. And he's got an opportunity to completely change the script and the way he's discussed. Because Winnipeg, they just won the President's Trophy, and I know they've got a very difficult matchup in round 1.
He might win the Hart Trophy.
I mean, he might win the Hart Trophy. Absolutely. He's got a shot. It's probably a coin flip with him and Draisaitl. Connor Hellebuck, I mean, what a massive chance for him just to state, hey, listen, I'm the best goaltender of this generation, and I'm going to prove it, and I understand that I have been not good in the postseason over the last 7 years or however long he's been starting for the Winnipeg Jets, but that's a guy with a lot of pressure on him, and I think simultaneously an opportunity for him to establish himself as a bona fide Hall of Famer, which I think he probably already is. You win 3 Vezinas, that's where you're at, but he's also regarded as a guy who just doesn't come up big in the postseason, and that's not a connotation that anybody wants to have.
I think I'm confident that he's going to bounce back.
I am too.
I don't know what the hell happened last year in the playoffs after that first victory, and then all of a sudden goals were going in left, right, and center. And Noodles will talk about what happened in front of him, and that wasn't good either. But the bottom line is he was the guy in net. So for some reason, I just think he's going to move on from that and be dynamite these playoffs. But puck drops, you never know.
Well, it's not just last year; it was the year before too. Like he's 2-8 in the last 2 playoff runs. You know, they got beaten 5 both times, and so that concerns me. But I agree with you, AK. Like you can spin it positively for him. You can if you're Connor Hellebuck and you've got your Bob Rotella a la Rory McIlroy in your ear, trying to give you the sort of talking points that you need to put your mind right as you enter these playoffs. You could say, "Hey, you were a stud in the Four Nations. Now you didn't win." But he had a .932 save percentage in the Four Nations. And it wasn't his fault that the D left, a guy named McDavid open in the slot for the winner. I mean, that was certainly not the goaltender's fault. So, he's had some recent success in big moments in that Four Nations. And he's also had, I'm looking at the voting for Hockey Writers Awards, and I don't know how you don't give this guy the Hart. Like, I haven't voted yet, but I'm having a hard time not giving this guy the Hart Trophy. It's just he's been the most important player on the best team in the league, and
his numbers are absolutely ridiculous.
There?
Ridiculous numbers.
How do you
top
see
to
it,
bottom.
It's difficult because Kucherov was so good for the Tampa Bay Lightning, and it's almost like his brilliance gets overlooked year after year, where it's like, well, that's just what you do, Kuch. And I think the overlooking aspect is going to be a factor in Connor Hellebuck ultimately winning the Hart Trophy. Because Leon Draisaitl was fantastic for the Edmonton Oilers, and Ray discussed it yesterday. Hardest thing to do in the world is score goals. He got 50. I think he was the only guy in the league to score 50 goals.
Unless Nylander scores 5 tonight.
Okay. But people are going to say he's already done that, and he's won a Hart. And not that I think Connor Hellebuck deserves it too. He was so good this year. You look at the stats, for only one major category because of last night, the save percentage, he was second. I think he's going to win because people are going to look at Kucherov, and I also think they're going to look at Draisaitl and say, those were fantastic seasons, but that's kind of what you do. And this is just so brilliant from a goaltender, and the record is so good, and he was such an important factor in the record for the Winnipeg Jets that he's going to win it.
Yeah, 47 wins, second most all time. Braden Holtby had 48 wins back, I think, 2017. Hellebuck got to 47 wins.
Well, that's
an incredible accomplishment.
In an era where goalies don't play.
Yeah, exactly.
This guy comes out there every night.
All right, number 1. I think you could probably take a guess as to who it is. It's Mitch Marner. He has the most to gain in these Stanley Cup playoffs. I think you could probably argue that he has the most pressure on him as well. And there's no denying the fact that the Maple Leafs fan base is a little bit ambivalent when it comes to Mitch Marner, and I totally understand why. The playoff performances have not been commensurate with the regular season performances. But I think his future, whether it's in Toronto or otherwise, could very well be crystallized as to how he and the Toronto Maple Leafs perform in this playoff round. If they're ousted in 5 games by Ottawa, what does that mean for the future of Mitch Marner? We know the Leafs wanted to sign him before the trade deadline. Does that evaluation change if they're ousted in a way that is completely disgusting? And maybe it doesn't. Maybe there's a decision that's already been made, regardless of what happens here with the Toronto Maple Leafs. We want Mitch Marner back in the blue and white for a long time. Maybe that's the decision they've made. But what if it goes poorly to the point where even if Marner does want to return, maybe the Leafs are thinking, nah, I don't think so. And on the other side, if Marner just kicks ass all playoffs, gets the Leafs to a cup final, is one of the leading point producers in the playoffs, then this guy will be an absolute legend in the city. Everyone will love him and will revere him. And that's the opportunity that he has in front of him alongside his teammates.
It's a good list, and it's a great number 1 with Mitch Marner, and it's very simple. He has to find a way to be a game breaker come playoff time. Four Nations, he did not start the game with Connor McDavid, but he made some plays, and John Cooper recognized that and said, I'm going to put you back with McDavid late in the hockey game. and he made the defining play in the hockey game. He had confidence to do it. I don't know how much one particular play could help his confidence, but you'd think it would help him a little bit. But it's not like he's going to run people over. It's not like he's going to get into scrums. He's not going to fight. He has to be a game breaker because that's what he does, and that's what people adore about him every night down at that arena. They're like, this guy's a difference maker. He's the one that gets it in overtime against the Montreal Canadiens and rips it home. Against the Edmonton Oilers, he can play defense against McDavid and Draisaitl and stop them both and then go the other way and score a goal. He's a game breaker and a difference maker. One of the best, if not top 5 in the league, difference makers in a game. But he has failed to do that come playoff time. And I'm pretty sure when the brass of the Toronto Maple Leafs sat up there at their year end and they said there's some traits and some things that we're seeing that are consistent year after year, his play and other star players' play would be one of them because they just don't do enough to help their team win. And if he does that, things will be different. And I talked about Bouchard with the ability to have financial gain come July 1st. The same is going to be for Mitch. If they get to a cup final, if they win the Stanley Cup, it's just an open piece of paper
Blank
and
check.
write whatever number you want on it.
Wow. Yeah, that's a great
And he'll
way
deserve it. Right?
Yeah, that's a great way to set yourself up for the future, dog. I love that. But look, I mean, Martyrs under the microscope, and it's a great list, AK.
Thank you, Dave.
I think it's a really astute list, and I think you make
The show's been really good.
It's been incredible. Yeah, I agree.
I will say this, though. Like, we're talking about Marner because it's the contract year, and he's the polarizing guy. You look at the Shannon Plan era since 2016-17, he leads the Maple Leafs in playoff scoring, okay? Let's not forget that. Now, all of their numbers are lower than they should be and much lower than their regular season numbers. But he does lead the team in scoring in the playoffs since he got here. And that includes Austin Matthews.
Yeah.
That includes William Nylander. They played very similar numbers of games. So let's not forget that, okay? I think it's been overblown a little bit how he has not shown up because, they've all not shown up in big moments.
Yes.
And he's just one of the gang. But
he's
no
just
doubt
one of
about
the
it.
gang, and it just so happens, I would be saying this about Austin Matthews or William Nylander. It just so happens that his contract is up and hasn't got done.
Right.
That's exactly it. Those guys are locked
That's
in.
why he is so polarizing right now. It's because it's your turn now, and nothing got done like William Nylander's did. And it's like, after all these years, if you don't have success, what's the sense of bringing the band back together?
We've had that conversation how many times? How many times? And we might have the conversation again in 10 days. It could happen.
Well,
Absolutely.
my thing is, look, they're 1 for 9 in playoff series. If they win a series here, is 2 for 10 good? If they go to the conference final, is 3 for 11 good?
Dude,
I don't know.
It's not like my thoughts on this. If they
man.
win
Come on.
one series, if they beat the Ottawa Senators, the first wild card team, I'm not going to say, man, open up the book. Like, give these guys. Like, that's one playoff series.
You should
The
beat
year they
Ottawa.
beat the Tampa Bay Lightning, everyone was excited, as they should be. But they followed it up with getting dummied by the Florida Panthers the very next round, a team that everyone was begging for. So I don't know. It's got to be way different.
It has
got to be way different.
And it all starts Sunday night at 7 p.m. TSN 1050 has games 2, 4, and 6 on the station. So we will be locked in for the Maple Leafs and the Battle of Ontario.
I really like the list, and what I'm hoping is we can get rid of Hazy's list, and you could kind of pre-record something, and we could just flip it on.
I'm sure Brian would appreciate that.
I'm telling you,
Yeah.
we're going to start next week.
All right.
AK's list is going to make a
AK's
return.
list.
It's going to have to be recorded because we're going to surprise
right.
him with it.
Yeah.
But weekly, we're getting AK's list.
Just imagine the disgust on Brian's face. Hey, Brian, hold on a second. Before you present Hazy's list, here's AK's list. Let's just break it down before you go.
Dude, I think he would run back there and give JP the Stone Cold Stunner.
And it would be deserved. It would be deserved. Hazy's list, exceptional stuff. Frank Corrado in about 15 minutes. Overdrive continues on TSN 4 and TSN 1050. Overdrive is brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Korolnek, O'Neill, Feschuk on this Thursday afternoon. You see Justin Thomas fire 61 today at the RBC Heritage. And I saw a stat that Justin Thomas, over the last 25 years, has 14 rounds on tour of 62 or lower, just dwarfs anybody else. Tiger only has 9. When JT goes low, he goes low, and today he most
Unfortunately
certainly
for
did.
him, though, he's got multiple personalities on the because he could show up tomorrow and
Probably
blow a
will.
78, and it's
Probably
like,
will.
what was that? Like, he can't, him and his buddy Jordan Spieth, they're fascinating to watch because it's one day it's, like, I can't imagine what Greller, Spieth's caddy, has to live through, like, watching that guy. Like, don't you say to your player, if you can't hit a fairway, like, figure out your driver or don't hit it. Get me in the fairway somehow. He's crazy to watch.
Dude, I remember watching him the 2015 and 2016 Masters on the practice tee. Like, he didn't know which way it was going with his driver. Like, one was going left, the next was going right.
Dude, and that's when he was good.
And he won. And then he almost won 2016 before he cacked it up in Rays Creek on 12. But, I mean, the thing about Spieth and Thomas to a degree, I was at the Masters this year, and I heard a number of the patrons who know a lot about golf just turn around after watching Spieth and go, this guy is so slow. Like, he is. It takes him forever to hit every shot. Like, you talk about needing a shot.
Guys aren't shy about it. Rory McIlroy came out and says, I can't stand being paired with Jordan Spieth because I can't watch him. I can't stand watching him.
Well, you have Brian Harmon. You've got a lot of dudes who are slow on PGA Tour. But
apparently
Spieth is like the worst to watch.
Well, they're putting the rangefinders in this week.
Well,
they're starting something on the Corn Ferry where guys are going to get penalized, and they're going to see how it works out. If it speeds anything up, maybe they'll start bringing it to the PGA Tour.
Let's hope so.
Just get somebody out there with a stopwatch and say you're on, go.
Yes.
And you got 40 seconds, hit the thing.
And if you don't, you get one-shot penalty.
Right.
Something like that. Because, watching Spieth is agonizing at times. Frank Corrado, very quick, prompt golfer. He's going to join us to kick off hour number 2. Paul McLean, the former head coach of the Ottawa Senators, worked with the Toronto Maple Leafs. He's coming up in hour 2 as well. You're watching OverDrive on TSN 2 and listening on TSN 1050.